Welcome back, everybody, to Event Tech Live, USA and Canada 2021, and to the main stage and our next session, a vision of virtual events in 2031. And the host of our next panel session, Neil Mortimer. Neil is the Client Success Manager at Grip, a company that we know very well here at Event Tech Live. Neil, welcome to Event Tech Live. It's great to have you here.
James, pleasure to be here.
I know that you've got a great panel lined up this afternoon, 3 great speakers who are going to be joining you to discuss this vision of events in 10 years' time. I'll hand over to you, Neil, and I'll see you back here a little bit later on for some questions.
Thanks, James. Look forward to seeing you later. So, hi, everybody. Welcome to a vision of virtual events in 2031. No mean feast, but we've got some giants of the event world to take on that question in the panel. So, introducing to you Joe Macchione of Thomson Reuters, James Kelly of MCI, Mayank Mota of Cloud Data Summit, and like James said, my name is Neil Mortimer from Grip. We are really looking forward to this session, I think looking at all of the different sessions that I've been watching across Event Tech Live, US and Canada, it's been amazing to see this level of innovation that's happened over the past 12 months. A vision for virtual events in 2031 is a big question, but I'm going to kick off by passing it around the panel. Just a very concise view, if you don't mind, of what that means to you and where you think things are going, and then we'll delve into some details a little bit later on. So let's start with you, James, if you don't mind. What does a vision of virtual events in 2031 mean to yourself?
I think that it changed a little bit this morning, Neil, with what we were talking about right before we kicked off with the LinkedIn investment this morning and Hopin, and it's integrated into our lives. Our children are playing in Roblox and engaging with their friends in the digital space much more than any of us ever have done, and it's just going to be all-encompassing in our lives, and being able to engage with one another in the digital space is the future. It'll be a supplement to our live events and a great add-on to those, but we're going to engage in it much more than what we are right now.
Yeah, certainly. It's going to be incredible, and you're right in terms of that news today. That was hugely interesting. I know Mayank knows Johnny personally, and was talking about that just before we came on. But Mayank, what does the vision for 2031 mean to you?
I would be on the same path with James. I think it will change in the terms of engagement that we are having right now globally. It will change in terms of the attendee experience that people are having right now. It would change the entire scenario of sponsors and everything related to event organization. So basically what will happen is everything is going to be literally on demand, and you can connect with anyone at any moment inside the event, being an avatar or just being yourself. So when the devices will get cheap, when I say the devices, I mean AR, VR devices, when these get, then the area of your event.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Joe, anything to add there?
Well, I think, both James and company were absolutely right on. I think as we evolve 10 years from now, and it's really hard to predict the future after the year that we've been through in the rapid pace of change in 2020 and into 2021, I hope that we can eliminate the term virtual, hybrid, and in-person. I think in 2031, we should just have an event, and that event should tell the stories that we're used to telling. It should deliver them in the platform that the attendees want to attend in, and that it is ubiquitous for them, that they don't have to make a choice to get on an airplane. They don't have to make a choice to log in, but we can do that storytelling, and we can do that in a way that suits the needs of what that audience is going to look like in 2031.
Yeah, I mean the needs of storytelling become more and more important with this series of innovations than not. It's critical that still remains a core focus for events moving forward. I think for me, in terms of the past 15 months or so, it's been incredible to see the change that's come. It's been incredible to see that we have accelerated a sector at the pace that we did. You know, the shift to virtual was sharp. The shift to virtual was something that it had a huge impact that was necessary to facilitate those in-person events. But what I think we see now is this next transition that we're going through. You know, people talk about it as a transition to hybrid. I think I'm more likely to think of it as a transition towards digitally enabled events, or events as a category, as an ability to be able to pick different types of event, whether that's virtual, hybrid, or in person, or even reams of on-demand content, and you can see how this is going to be all encompassing for the event industry to grab all of these different ways of going. Do you think, Joe, that the pandemic and the past 15 months have been something that would make 2031 a different destination? It's expedited our journey to 2030, to that destination quicker, or do you think things have changed over the past 15 months that wouldn't have changed previously?
So I think that the trajectory has probably just increased, Neil. I mean, I don't know that we are actually changing why we do events, what those measurement criteria are, and how we get to the end result of what we're looking for an event success profile. But I think the pandemic certainly escalated the pace of change. And I don't see that pace of change for the technology and for the incredibly improving skills that event professionals need to bring to the table as we go through 2031. You know, we are not going to slow down, and we are going to see rapid adoption from new technology, the AR, the avatars, all of those things that are going to come down the road to us. If that's what our attendees are looking for, I don't see that that's going to slow up. So did the pandemic change the direction of the event industry? I don't know that it changed it, but it sure as heck sped it up.
Yeah, certainly. James, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I just think when you look at the year 2031, the people that are going to be attending our events right now are in middle school. They're in high school. They don't have their first jobs yet. So what are they doing? How are they engaging with their friends? How are they doing these things? And how do we, as event organizers, who until the pandemic, we kind of like to do a rinse and repeat. You know, we'll throw a new little technology in there and really didn't focus on what is new, what is the next great thing. And this has given us the ability, all of us being thrust into this digital world, to go find that opportunity for those kids that are in middle school and high school now, that are going to be our next members and attendees. How are they engaging? What do we need to do to attract them to come to our events so that these people that are coming out of our industries don't leave this space?
Yeah, definitely. And Mayank, and I know that you're a guy who wants to see a lot of innovation in this space, or has seen that coming down the road, and now must be extremely excited about it.
Yes, I mean, what we started as a company, or what I have seen after talking to the founders of these platforms that we are running events on, I think we have not changed much, because we always wanted things to go virtual, right? Things to go digital. When the teams are working remotely, then we were always looking at this path where the events could be organized virtually, right? So I think we have not changed much in that path, but we have done with great force right now. We are delivering awesome platforms. We are providing all what you can get in a motor and big conference. So what we are delivering right now is awesome, and the speed is going to double up.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting next 12 months for this sector, where we see a lot of experimentation happening, and then that will forge what we look at further. But one of the things that was always a passion point for me, or certainly in the kind of latter 5 years of my career pre-pandemic, was this desire I always knew that events were effective. I knew that. It was in my, I absolutely knew that. But one of the problems that I always came across was the conversation with the CMO where you can't prove that events are effective. And what this pandemic period has done for me is, yes, it's highlighted the necessity for technology to be embraced. But what it's also accelerated is a need to be able to utilize that technology, to utilize in data, and to be able to turn that data into an ability to be able to prove that the event, not just through some stats, but actually use that data for AI purposes. And that's one of the things that at the core of the business that I work for, Grip, we do, and we do that for predictive analytics. We do that to create automation, and we do that to create personalization. These methods are what's used all the time by other digital channels, and this is for me, this is the moment, this is the springboard moment for this industry to embrace these totally. James, do you think that we are going to see this embrace? We were seeing it already. I'm not saying we weren't, but a real embrace of this piece of the event mix.
Absolutely. It's for me in my career. I've worked on the largest trade shows that happen in the world. 100,000 plus events with thousands of exhibitors, and there's always how do we show the value? Somebody comes into a booth, they scan their badge, and they go home with data of this is who we talk to. And as we've built at MCI, I'm building virtual events for customers and getting better data for those exhibitors and sponsors than they've ever had in a booth. And being able to now go to that CMO and show this is how many impressions we had in a booth, and really start talking about our space not as a booth or as a stand, but as a microsite for these exhibitors and sponsors. Really talking about the marketing things that they do in their web presence in this space, and really being able to show what that ROI and value is, and get really rich, great data in this space that they can compare and contrast with their in-person events, and really be able to create great sales opportunities for those exhibitors and sponsors, but also on the show organizer side of using AI, being able to go and find it. We have this niche that's coming to our event here. How do we bring more of them in? We now know that they interacted in these different areas at the event, and how do we cultivate that and grow that as we get to 2031?
Thanks, James. Yeah, I think that it's interesting that we need to put some fundamental pillars in place. I mean, there was event organizers that were doing it, and very much doing it very well, and putting those pillars in place. However difficult it was to completely uproot their process and to almost start again, they were doing it pre-pandemic, and those important pillars are critical. What will you, if we just stay with you, James, for a second, what would you say are those core pieces of progress that need to get made around the data AI piece that organizers need to start really embracing at this moment, rather than pushing that further down the road? What would you say the core bits that need to be included?
I think for me is we talk in our industry for years of show them that we know them, and we know that the personalized data that's there. But I think the bigger thing is, and you deal with it, Neil, at Grip and other technology providers. Every organization has a different data set that they're grabbing, that they're looking for. We need to have an industry-based data set that is the base of every event that we do: name, address, phone, fax, all those things. But then what are these core demographics that all of us need to know across the industry? How large is the company? It's interesting as we talked about the LinkedIn thing this morning, is you look on LinkedIn, what are those core things that they're asking you to tell about yourself? Maybe that's the base of this core demographic data that we need to have across all of our organizations, across all of our events, to make it easier to go back, and instead of different items that everybody does a little bit differently, different data sets that everyone's using, to be able to have an industry-wide data set that we all can work off of, and that we all can build better and greater things with.
Yeah,
Joe?
if I could just add to that just a second, Neil. I think those are great points by James. I mean, I think one of the challenges this industry has always had as an event industry is how do we measure success here, and how do we adapt to the new metrics that the digital world requires us to bring to the table. So the CMO says, yeah, $5 here to digital, $10 here to your event. You know, how do we manage that? And I think to bridge on what James said, it's about personalization, right? We will know more about our attendees when we overlay a digital presence to them. We also can track their journeys better as they work their way through the process and work their way through that consumption of that content that we provide in the event. I remember the days, we thought we were really doing it great when we could put a little RFID chip in the name badge, and then we could track that attendee through the various booths that they visited or the various sessions that they went to. With the overlay of the digital infrastructure on top of that, we will learn a whole lot more about what they're interested in, what their journey was like, and where they want to go next to continue that dialogue with the company.
Agreed. I think,
I just want to add one more point to what he said. Like that's totally on point, right? Like we can analyze all that data, but right now analyzing that data in real time is really, really difficult. So in the coming months or in the coming years, what we will actually see, the event planners can use big data to organize real time attendee centric events and increase the attendee engagement. And that could be done by form of email, survey, tweets, photos, or geographic data, and then they can deliver the enhanced event experience as they go. So for example, right now, if I have to change the room and I'm in a brick and mortar conference, I have to travel and I have to, at least take 50, 60 steps to do that. And that would require me to spend 2 to 3 minutes of my time. But right now, when everything is going digital, I can just change the session in 30 seconds. I just need to click on somewhere else and then I will be in the different session. So the data that we have right now is weak, but we can analyze it.
Yeah, I think one of the things, the fundamentals at Grip that we're putting together is this idea of a complete market engagement platform. So you've got that data in one place, and you can then take your learnings from event to event, no matter what the use of event is, whether it's a virtual event, whether it's an in-person event. Just moving on, because I think that's a topic that we could all talk about for the whole period through this conversation. We can come back to it, but I just want to scratch an itch, because when we're looking at 2031, we're looking at a far away distance and time. This AR, VR, 3D environments piece around when we're just thinking about virtual, is this something that we can all see coming through? I think there's some amazing examples out there. I think, James, we were talking before about some amazing examples of how 3D or VR elements could really start coming into play in a way that potentially a lot of people can't envisage at the moment.
Yeah, I was sharing. I was watching an NBA playoff game on my Oculus headset, just to see what that experience was like, and I was able to get a peripheral to peripheral view of the game, and just the different interactions that are happening in VR right now in a gamification entertainment way. They're going to translate into our industry. They're going to happen. We're going to have people that are going to be able to sit and watch a keynote on their VR headset and feel like they're sitting in the room. We're going to have that happen. It is, as we've learned during the pandemic, after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting, our time has now been compressed even more than it was before the pandemic. So the days of somebody being able to take 4 or 5 days out of the office to go to an event are going to be a lot more limited for some than they were in the past. But we have to give them the ability to be able to interact and engage in a way that is as close to the in-person environment as they had prior. So using that AR and VR as we are in the entertainment space translates really well to sessions, to keynote topics, and also on the exhibitor sponsor side, being able to give them the ability to have a face-to-face conversation in a pseudo live fashion in the physical space is going to be very prevalent, I feel, in 2031.
Thanks, James. Yeah, Mayank, do you agree with that?
I partially agree because it is going to depend upon the demographics. When I say demographics is because, for example, if you are the decision maker of a company, right, and if you are Fortune 500, do you have the time and the space to become an avatar by wearing those high cost devices and provide that devices to the employees, and then they are attending the event? So it depends upon the demographics and the age group that you are in. For example, right now, people who are born and from 30 years from today, who were with the a decision making people, right, like the people who are right now who are makers, I don't think in coming years they would be happy to wear those devices, and they will be like, okay, let's jump in this. Maybe the people who are born right now, they would be more curious to do that in the coming years, but it all depends upon the demographics that we are targeting here.
Yeah, James, do you agree there?
Yeah, totally agree. I think it depends on the demographics. It depends on the type of event. If you're going to go to a houseware show, I don't see somebody, they want to put their hands on it. But if you're going to a higher end type event that you want to be able to go see the keynote, it's really going to be market and audience demographic based. Tech events where people are going to want to engage for a little bit and be able to see different things and not go away. It totally is going to depend on the event, but I think that we will definitely see it in some of our events around some of those demographics.
Oh yes, we
Yeah,
will see it. Definitely we will see it. But again, my point is, are the companies okay to accept that expense in terms of event organizers, or they are happy to spend that amount of money to support that infrastructure? And does the attendees have the capacity to attend that event? So that's the biggest question that I have. If the devices doesn't get cheap, if they are expensive, I don't know how many people are going to buy those devices out of their pocket and they are going to attend the event. But in a particular industry, when you say gaming sector or entertainment sector, yes, it's highly possible, because that's really an industry which needs this.
I think that we've got to start thinking about all of these different tools that we will now have at our disposal, and where is face-to-face most effective? Where is a VR 3D skate most effective? Because it really comes down to effectiveness, doesn't it? I'm sure, Joe, you would make a point on this one before we move on.
Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree, Neil. I think that we're never going to have an equivalent experience between in-person, virtual, or just flat, a webinar type attendance. But I think we have to provide to the audience the technology, the platform, the tools that allow them to engage with us as they see fit. I mean, there's a difference between going to I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan, so we're big football fans here. So a big difference from going to the stadium to watch a football game and watching it on TV. Now, maybe the VR experience bridges that a little bit, but I see that those differing experiences need to be treated differently and use the tools and the technology that the event professional has in front of him or her to deliver that in a way that is most effective for that audience and that demographic. And I absolutely agree with James. 10 years from now, our audiences are going to be completely different, and they're going to feel different, and they're going to act different, and we need to blend our technology to support what they want, not what we want.
Agreed. I think just moving on from the VR AR play, because again, I think that sounds like a topic we could talk about. But I think one of the big talking point, let's say, around this new movement into hybrid, this new movement that we're seeing at the moment, and whether or not we'll see that legacy over the next 10 years, is this whole community piece. The whole way of enabling an entire community around an event brand that then can work throughout 365 is something that's being put forward a lot at the moment. It's not something that's necessarily new. I mean, events have been trying to facilitate this 365 community platform environment for a while pre-pandemic. Now seems to be the time that a lot of people and a lot of companies are talking about it. Is this the moment where events become the community catalyst for the next decade, or do we think that there's something else at play here? Mayank, do you want to start there?
Yeah, sure. So I think engagement with people across the globe was possible when platforms like MySpace, Facebook were launched, right? There were already social media groups that you can interact with. There were already LinkedIn groups that you can interact with. What has happened post COVID, lockdowns and lockdowns and lockdowns, right? The technology demanded more than what we can now. I mean, we could have done, right? So to change that, we now have a platform where you can interact, by turning on the video, right? And you can keep the engagement, and it's just near real time, right? And we are trying to replicate the experience of brick and mortar conference. So community is going to play a big role always and always, right? But we cannot tell what is going to happen in the next decade, because we don't know how the pandemic is going to look like in the next decade. If it's
That's
going
a,
to if it's going to be much bad than what we have right now, I don't know what is going to happen with the communities. Are they going to sustain online? Are they going to be like, okay, we are done with online, we need to find something else? So I really don't know the answer to that. It's
I think, yeah, that's interesting.
it's hard to predict, because I think there would be more biological wars. So it's hard to predict what is going to happen to these communities.
Well, I definitely don't want to go off track and start talking about the pandemic lasted for 10 years, if you don't mind. Yeah, I think it's a good point that you make. Guys, either of you, Joe, would you like to jump in there? Or?
Yeah, so, to Mike's point, it's really hard to predict the future, right? Who would have predicted that's where we are today? But I do think that we are going to continue to use the event program, however it is defined, as a way to establish communities and to develop communities and to keep that dialogue going. People are not going to lose the need to be in touch with each other and communicate. Now, whether we provide that to them in a virtual platform like this, where, we've got Mike in India and James in, Dallas, and Neil, you're in Portugal, and I'm over here in Michigan. These are great tools to build a community. I think as human beings, we'll probably miss some of that person-to-person interaction, but maybe we can blend the two going forward. Who knows what the future is going to bring?
Yeah, I think that it's the 365 point that I think is the interesting one. I mean, to have that level of engagement throughout the year, I think we kind of see it grip in terms of you've got these moments of synchronous communication happening, and then you bring people together, much in the way that the physical event does that, but the virtual event can do that also. And we've got the ability to be able to put episodes of those together. Rather than trying to think about every Monday morning, we've got to have content that's engaging an audience. I think it's kind of the 365 thing is kind of thinking it's always engaged like a social network, whereas maybe there's something else that is a bridge between the two.
Sorry, James, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think my team here at MCI is getting tired of me. This is one of my soapbox things, for being in the industry for over 20 years, that what we've just been forced into for this last year was like the holy grail. There have been so many different technologies that have come out. There are multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars 15 years ago. I could tell you why doing a digital trade show was a stupid idea when I was trying to get you to come and use our registration and lead services. You don't want to do that. I've had a totally different change of mindset in the past 15 months. We need to create digital marketplaces for our exhibitors and sponsors. We need to create digital learning arenas outside of an LMS system. Most associations have webinar scheduled every Wednesday. There's webinars for education to get continuing education out. Take it into this digital arena that we've now been thrust into. Use the tools that are there to create a community, as you say, but to offer value and engagement for members and non-members. We have a medical group that we work with that was on the front lines of COVID. They built Slack channels for their members to share research that they were all doing back in April and May of last year. Those Slack channels still have a tremendous amount of engagement. Okay, well, why don't we have the Slack channel moved into this digital community, and we do our webinars in there. We have our continuing education in there, and stop thinking about it as the replacement of our face-to-face. This is never going to be the replacement of our face-to-face event. We've all been working together for a few weeks now. I want to come have a beer with you. I want to sit and talk in person to person, but use this arena, this community to create that, that FOMO, that fear of missing out of that human interaction to really drive and supplement our in-person events. That, I've been talking to Neil and Joe Minuk for the last 6 months about these topics. Hey, we're all going to Event Tech Live in London in the fall. Let's have dinner one night. And create that wanting to be together to really drive the in-person events using all of these technologies and tools.
I think it's the qualification piece, isn't it? Sorry, Joe, you go.
No, I apologize. I just wanted to add, one of the things that has always frustrated me in my soapbox, James, is that, we would run these events, whether they're virtual or they're in person, and we would just crush on these content pieces, and we'd build all this content, and we build all these stories, and we'd build these pieces that we would deliver to that audience. In the in-person world, we'd shut the stage down, we'd go home, and we'd just forget about that content. Same kind of thing sort of happened in the virtual world, right? We need to take that content and continue to use that content to help build that community down the road. Sorry, Neil, back to you.
No worries at all. Absolutely. To me, what's always struck me is this role that events play, this role of bringing people together, and this role of effectiveness that they can achieve that other channels can't. And that's why events are still part of the mix, even though they've had probably the most bumpiest time they could ever have dreamt of. Events are still there and still a core part of how companies market products. So it's key that we make sure that events have a role to play moving forward. But events, I think, have got this opportunity to potentially carve ground into other digital channels. Everybody talks about virtual as a replacement for live, and that's not surprising given the past 15 months. Virtual in its own way is so effective. It's more effective than other digital channels potentially. And when you compare virtual to other digital channels, it's more effective than some of them. It's got the scale that some of them have. And so I think it's going to be, can events become a more powerful channel than other digital channels and start carving into that excess budget that we see in other digital channels? James, fancy that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the data that's here, we have so many, especially on the exhibitor sponsor side. How much money are they spending on building a website for a product launch that they just throw out into the world? When you're in this type of community and you are able to go and update your microsite that is in this community, the data that's there is so rich and is so great. And we have to start looking at it outside of, I'm building a stand, I'm building a booth. We're only going to talk to these people that are here. And if I have a great sales guy, he's going to follow this person around and figure out every piece of content he looked at, and we're going to mark it down, and then we're going to go and do some marketing to that. Here, I'm able to get all of that data on that individual that I can go and sell to in just such a much more, curated, cultivated way, and go get that other money that's used in other marketing channels to come back into our event space.
Yeah, totally. I always used to get frustrated back in 2008 when my events budget was being swapped out for Facebook likes. It's like, what's that achieving? And it's still happening. Joe, do you want to add there?
Well, yeah, I live in the corporate event space, right? So we do a lot of trade shows as sponsors. We have some sponsors that support some of our events. I think that we need to have the data, and we need to have the metrics that support our event program from an ROI perspective. The reality is, if we don't have that information, we're not going to get the attention of the CMO, and we're going to get a lot of attention from the CFO when we go to them and say, look, we want to go do this. So we need to have those kind of metrics that support no more Facebook likes, more events. And I think this digital infrastructure that we've been forced into, this virtualization that has happened so rapidly for us, if we can take those metrics and we can take that discipline and that muscle memory that we learned in 2020 and apply it as we go forward through 2021 and on to 2031, I think we'll be able to continue to establish our viability at the marketing level, and we'll be able to use the very best of those digital marketing tools to do our event marketing. So it's all about the data, and it's all about how we learn from what we've done and experiment and get better at it.
Agreed. Mayank?
I just want to add, like, both the points that you guys have discussed are right. Like, data is everything that can turn the picture that we are seeing right now. And as we move forward, we have to analyze the data in the correct way so that we can drive the event in the correct path, and you can promote the event in the correct path, and you can get the people in the lead cycle in the correct way so that you can close more deals faster in these events. So data is the best oil that can solve all the problems in the lead cycle that sponsors are looking for.
Yeah, data and its effective application through using technology like AI, and being able to actually, I think one of the big overwhelming things that event organizers felt for a long time is, thanks for all the data, I don't know what to do with it. And I think that it's very important that whoever's providing that data is giving the strategy on that, because data on itself is not necessarily what people need. I think if we move forward, if we try and sort of close this off, when we look at the next 10 years and we look at other organisers that are watching this today, and what are these fundamentals that they should be thinking about? What are the priorities that they've got the right event strategy? You guys are definitely well placed to advise them on the fundamentals, not the entire strategy, but the fundamentals of what they must have to make sure that their ambition over the next decade is not under ambitious, that it's at the level that it should be. I think we've spoken about a lot of kind of things that are very doable actions that they can begin with today. So what's the sort of thing that really strikes out to you guys? Mayank, would you like to start there? Just very concise, what do you focus on?
Yeah, I would say just analyze the data, get the best insights that you can get from your events, right? Understand the different demographics, understand the pop in, pop out of each session and what is happening in each sessions, whether you are running a physical event, whether you are running a virtual event, right? And always try to stay virtual, and if physical, then go for it. Don't think that only physical can drive more. I think both are powerful. So just use the data in the correct way and keep analyzing and keep improving.
Agreed. James?
Yeah, I think for me is do something new, try something new, use different technology. What you all do at GRIP, go try something. The thing that I would challenge, we are talking at a U.S. Canada event. Look at what's happening in Europe. I have the benefit of having a Geneva-based headquarters and having a partner in crime over there that's seen all the technology that's coming out of, Neil, you're in Portugal. The things that are coming out of the UK and out of Europe that is, in my opinion, a lot further ahead on some of these technologies than what we're seeing here in the United States. So be open to trying new things, to doing different things, because the other big thing that's changed, as I said earlier, it used to be very expensive to get in to do some of these things. It is much, much, much lower than it was prior. So try new technology and see if it works. If it doesn't work, trade it out and try something else.
Now's the time, for sure. Joe, over to you on that point.
Yeah, thanks. I'd agree with everything that Mayank and James said. I mean, this is going to be a run for the next number of years, not like it hasn't been the last couple, but learn the technology, learn the tools that are out there, constantly be willing to experiment. I used to tell the event planners that worked for me, the 7 most dangerous words in the world are "we did it that way last year." Last year's gone, and it's a different way of thinking, and we need to think about what the audience wants and think about how we get that audience to engage with us, and then let's make sure that we're measuring their intent so that we can put in front of them a reason to attend our meetings, whether it's in person, virtual, or it's a low scale webinar type thing. Let's learn what makes their life better, because that's what the business is, whether we're doing association events or corporate events or whatever. We do these events to incentivize, motivate, and educate. And if we can deliver on that, 2031 will look a lot different, but it's going to be a lot of fun getting there.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think that's something that event organizers need to embrace with technology, is that technology's got the capabilities to be able to revolutionize the way events are done from the point of view of effectiveness. And if they're more effective, then they're going to be able to command greater budget, which, guess what, means better experiences and events. And one of the reasons why events sometimes fall flat is because they haven't been given the budget they deserve, because they haven't been able to prove that. And I think one of my big takeouts that organizers need to take on board is that you need to get control of the data piece, and you need to be able to order everything inside one customer database that you have to grab hold of and say, this is how we're going to learn, and this is how we're going to capture as much as we can, and this is how we're going to focus attention on taking those learnings forward and building better, more personalized events for individuals in the future. If we don't do it because we're not using it, the problem always used to be, you just think about the next event. You just think about the one that you've got coming up. You need to think 10 years ahead is a little bit too much. We need to think 10 events ahead at the very least, and start putting the pieces in play to be able to do those very effectively. And we definitely see with the organizers that we work with that embrace that they absolutely are kind of striding forward versus the ones that don't. I believe James is going to join us. He was a little delayed, but hopefully we filled quite nicely there. And we have some questions from the audience. So hopefully he will be joining us in a moment. But here he is. James, it's good to see you.
Indeed, I am. Guys, thank you very much for that conversation. I've been listening in intently. I've been facilitating some questions on one of our other stages where we had just a little bit of a delay. So apologies for jumping back in here right at the last minute, and apologies if you've answered any all of these. So let's just fly through some questions very quickly and we'll get some snappy answers from you guys. Will we even call them virtual events in 10 years' time? Again, apologies if that one's already been covered, if you've been monitoring these, but will we call them virtual events in 10 years' time, or will they just be events, Neil?
Well, we have answered that one, and I think Joe answered that one earlier, which is that they will just be events. Joe, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, I think we need to break the barriers, right? Virtual, hybrid, in person, those are just words that mean something to us. In the end, an event is an event, whether it's delivered virtually, whether it's delivered via VR, whether it's delivered in person. Event's an event, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Guys, we're pretty much on time. Let's throw one more in there. Again, apologies if you've covered some of these. I'm just going to fly through them quickly. Would customers keep sharing their data for free in 2030?
Well, that's a good question. I'm going to attempt to say that there's a long way to go until 2030, and I think we're seeing a trend that people share data where they get value, and I think that's the key component, is that needs to be completely transparent, and they need to get the value. If they get the value, they're happy. If they don't, they don't like it. Anyone to add? Any last point there?
Value proposition.
I'd like
if
to
it's
say,
worth it, they will. That's it.
I think what we should do is rewatch this session in 10 years' time, and we'll all gather back here exactly 10 years to the day and see exactly where we sit with things. It'd be fascinating to put that one in the diary and see where we are. Guys, we've got to wrap things up there because we are out of time. In fact, we're just exactly on time. Neil, thanks for doing such a great job in facilitating and chairing that session. James Kelly, Joe McKeon and Mayank Motta, thank you very much for joining Event Tech Live today. It's been great to have all of you on this particular panel. If you would like to connect with our panelists and with our speakers and with our chairs that have hosted sessions at Event Tech Live yesterday, today and ahead into tomorrow, please do so via the Event Tech Live virtual platform. You can connect with all of our speakers and panelists in there, as well as all of the exhibitors and sponsors who are helping to make Event Tech Live happen. Guys, it's been a pleasure to have you. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everybody.
Wow.
Thank you.